Dear brothers and sisters, there comes a moment in life when you realize that no matter how hard you push, how much you plan, or how desperately you try to make things happen, they simply don't move. Doors remain closed, paths feel blocked, and your heart grows tired. My brothers and sisters, this is not the moment to panic, nor is it a sign that you have been forgotten. This is often the moment when Allah, in His infinite wisdom, is inviting you to learn something deeper than success, faster than achievement, and stronger than control. You see, when everything was working, you thought it was your effort that made it happen. When everything was flowing, you believed it was your strength holding it together. But now, when you can't force things anymore, Allah gently removes the illusion and teaches you reliance. He teaches you that peace does not come from getting what you want, but from trusting the one who knows what you need. Sometimes Allah slows you down not to punish you, but to protect you, to realign your heart, and to remind you that what is written for you will never miss you, no matter how lightly you walk toward it. There is a subtle but powerful lesson that unfolds when you reach the stage where you can no longer force things to happen. For a long time, you may have believed that effort alone controls outcomes. You planned carefully, pushed consistently, sacrificed endlessly, and told yourself that if you just tried harder, things would eventually bend in your favor. And sometimes they did. But then came a phase when no amount of effort seemed to work. You knocked, and the door remained closed. You asked, and the answer did not come. You waited, and the waiting stretched longer than you imagined. This is often the moment Allah wants you to understand the difference between effort and control. Allah never tells us to stop trying. Islam teaches action, responsibility, and striving. But it also teaches something far deeper. Your effort is an act of worship, not a guarantee of results. Results belong to Allah alone. When you confuse effort with control, you burden your heart with anxiety, fear, and disappointment. You start believing that if something doesn't happen, it means you failed. But when Allah removes your ability to force outcomes, He is teaching you that success is not defined by what you manage to achieve, but by how firmly you remain connected to Him while you strive. There are times when Allah allows things to happen quickly, so you recognize His generosity. And there are times when He withholds, so you recognize His lordship. If everything happened exactly when you wanted, exactly how you planned, your heart would slowly attach to your own capability rather than His power. You would begin to rely on strategy more than DUA, on connections more than Tawakkul, and on your strength more than His decree. So Allah, out of mercy, disrupts your sense of control. He places you in situations where your hands are tied but your heart is wide open. And that is where real faith is born. When you can't force things anymore, you begin to notice how much energy you wasted resisting reality. You start to see that forcing outcomes often came at the cost of your peace. You compromised your values. You rushed decisions. You begged for things that were not meant to stay. Allah sometimes blocks your way because what you were chasing would have exhausted your soul if you had caught it. What you call a delay is often divine protection unfolding quietly, patiently, without noise. This lesson is especially difficult because it confronts the ego. The ego wants control. It wants certainty. It wants immediate reassurance. But faith thrives in surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up. It means trusting the process even when the path is unclear. When Allah teaches you that you cannot force things, He is teaching you humility. He is reminding you that you are a servant, not the architect of destiny, and there is incredible peace in it. That realization, even though it may arrive through discomfort, you begin to understand that some things require timing, not tension. You realize that pulling harder does not open doors that Allah has decreed to open gently. In fact, the more you force, the more drained you become. Allah wants you to learn how to knock, make du'a, take the means, and then step back with calm certainty that whatever unfolds is part of a wiser plan. This balance between effort and trust is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. Often Allah teaches this lesson through repeated disappointments. Not because He enjoys seeing you struggle, but because your heart was not listening the first time. Each disappointment peels away another layer of dependence on the world. Each unanswered prayer refines the way you ask. Eventually, you stop demanding outcomes and start asking for guidance, clarity, and contentment. And that is when something profound happens. Even if the situation doesn't change immediately, you change. Your heart softens. Your anxiety lessens. Your connection deepens. There is a powerful transformation that takes place when you begin to trust timing over force. At first, it feels unnatural because everything around you pushes urgency. You are taught to chase, to hurry, to compete with time itself. You feel pressure to arrive early, to achieve fast, to prove yourself quickly. And when things don't move at your pace, anxiety creeps in. You start forcing conversations, forcing decisions, forcing outcomes, and even forcing yourself to be ready for things your heart is still learning how to carry. But Allah, in His mercy, slows you down. Not to frustrate you, but to teach you that timing is not your enemy. It is part of divine care. When you force things, you often do so out of fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of missing out. Fear that if you don't act now, the opportunity will disappear forever. But what is truly written for you does not require panic, it does not. Demand desperation. What is meant for you will arrive with calm, not chaos. Trusting Allah's timing means believing that nothing will pass you by if it was meant to reach you. And this belief is not passive. It is deeply active because it requires restraint of the ego and discipline of the heart. Patience is often misunderstood as doing nothing. In reality, patience in faith is one of the most active forms of worship. It is choosing obedience when disobedience feels easier. It is choosing calm when panic feels natural. It is choosing trust when doubt whispers loudly. When you trust Allah's timing, you still take the means. You still make effort. But you stop rushing the results. You stop trying to drag the future into the present. You accept that some things need time to ripen. And if you pluck them too early, they lose their sweetness. Allah's timing is perfect because it considers not just what you want, but who you are becoming. Sometimes you are delayed because the blessing you are asking for requires a stronger version of you, a more patient you, a more grounded you. If Allah were to give you everything immediately, you might collapse under its weight or misuse it out of immaturity. So He trains you through waiting. Each day of patience builds capacity within you, even if you don't notice it happening. There are moments when trusting timing feels painful. You see others move ahead. You see doors opening for people around you while yours remain closed. Comparison becomes a test. You begin questioning your worth, your effort, even your faith. But Allah never measures your life against someone else's timeline. Your journey is tailored uniquely for you. What arrives early for someone else may arrive late for you because the lesson you need is different. And Allah is too just to rush a soul that still needs nurturing. When patience becomes worship, your waiting changes in quality. You are no longer simply enduring time, you are investing in it. Every moment of restraint, every moment you choose not to force what isn't ready is recorded as devotion. You are rewarded not just for the outcome, but for the trust you placed in Allah while you waited. This kind of patience purifies intentions. It strips away entitlement and replaces it with humility. You stop saying, I deserve this now, and start saying, I trust you know when. Forcing things often leads to regret. Many people look back and realize that the moments they rushed were the moments they later had to repair. Decisions made in haste usually demand patience afterward. Allah, in His wisdom, tries to spare you that regret by slowing you down beforehand. When you learn to trust timing, you begin to see that delays are often invitations to breathe, reflect, and realign. They are pauses that protect you from lifelong consequences. Trusting Allah's timing also teaches emotional balance. You stop swinging between extreme hope and deep despair based on immediate results. You learn to remain steady, content, even while striving, hopeful, even while waiting. This balance is a sign of spiritual maturity. It shows that your heart is anchored in Allah rather than in outcomes. You understand that success is not only about arrival, but about who you are while you are on the way. There is a special tranquility that enters the heart of a person who truly trusts divine timing. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop chasing validation. You stop forcing people to understand you or situations to resolve immediately. You learn that clarity comes with time. And what is unclear today will make sense tomorrow. This tranquility is not weakness. It is strength rooted in faith. Patience as worship also deepens your relationship with Allah. When answers are delayed, it becomes more sincere. You speak to Allah more honestly. You turn to Him not just for solutions, but for strength. You begin to feel His presence not only in answered prayers, but in the endurance He grants you. This is a deeper connection, one that does not depend on constant ease. Eventually, you realize that trusting timing saved you from versions of life that would have cost you your peace. You see how moments you once rushed toward would have met you at the wrong stage of your growth. You recognize that Allah's delays were acts of kindness. And when the right time finally comes, things unfold with a sense of ease that force could never produce. Doors open naturally. Hearts align effortlessly. What arrives feels right, not rushed. This is the beauty of trusting Allah's timing. You move through life without constantly fighting it. You still dream, still strive, still hope, but you do so with serenity. You understand that patience is not standing still. It is walking calmly toward what Allah has written, knowing that every step, even the slow ones, are taking you exactly where you need to be. Letting go is one of the hardest spiritual disciplines because it feels like loss before it feels like faith. The human heart clings tightly to what it loves, what it desires, and what it believes will bring security. You hold on to plans, people, expectations, and even versions of yourself that once made sense. And when Allah asks you to let go, it can feel as though the ground beneath you is being pulled away. But in reality, letting go is not abandonment, it is alignment. It is the soul learning where true safety lies. Many people think letting go means giving up or becoming indifferent. In faith, it is the opposite. Letting go means you care deeply, but you trust Allah more than what you are holding on to. You release control over outcomes while maintaining sincerity in effort. This release is a form of worship because it acknowledges that Allah is the owner and you are the caretaker for a time. Nothing you possess is permanent, not opportunities, not relationships, not even ease. When you understand this, your heart loosens its grip and freedom begins to take root. Clinging too tightly often creates inner turmoil. You replay scenarios in your mind, imagining different endings. You obsess over what could have been or what should happen next. This constant mental struggle drains your energy and steals your peace. Allah knows this weakness in the human heart. And that is why He teaches you to let go, not to make you empty, but to make space. Space for contentment, space for clarity, space for what is truly meant for you. Letting go requires trust, and trust grows in moments of uncertainty. When you release something you cannot control, you place it in Allah's care. That act alone lightens the burden on your heart. You realize that you were never meant to carry the weight of outcomes. You were meant to carry intention, effort, and sincerity. The rest belongs to Allah. This realization is deeply freeing because it shifts responsibility from your limited capacity to His infinite wisdom. There is also healing in letting go of expectations. Expectations often come from imagined futures that exist only in your mind. You attach happiness to scenarios that may never unfold the way you envision. When those expectations collapse, you feel disappointed not because something bad happened, but because reality didn't match your imagination. Allah teaches you to let go of these imagined futures so you can fully live in the present. Presence is where gratitude grows, and gratitude is where peace resides. Sometimes letting go involves releasing people from your heart. This can be especially painful because emotional bonds run deep. You may hold on to someone out of fear of loneliness, familiarity, or unresolved hope. But Allah never removes someone without wisdom. Holding on to what Allah is asking you to release keeps you emotionally stuck. Letting go, though painful at first, allows your heart to heal and opens it to healthier connections. It teaches you that your worth is not dependent on who stays or who leaves. Letting go also means releasing the need to understand everything immediately. The human mind craves explanation, closure, and certainty, but faith teaches you that not all wisdom is revealed at once. Some lessons unfold slowly over years. When you let go of the need for immediate answers, you free yourself from constant frustration. You begin to trust that clarity will come when it is beneficial for you to have it. Inner freedom is one of the greatest gifts of letting go. When you are no longer attached to outcomes, you become emotionally resilient. You are not easily shaken by change because your foundation is not built on what comes and goes. You learn to enjoy blessings without fear of losing them and endure trials without fear of being broken. This emotional balance allows you to move through life with dignity and calm. Letting go also deepens humility. It reminds you that you are not the controller of events. You are a traveler passing through moments that Allah has arranged. This humility does not weaken you, it strengthens you. It makes you adaptable, reflective, and grounded. You stop resisting life and start flowing with it, trusting that Allah's plan is always kinder than you're grasping. There is a quiet strength that comes from letting go. It is not loud or dramatic. It is felt in how calmly you respond to disappointment, how gracefully you accept change, and how gently you treat yourself when things don't work out. This strength is born from faith, from knowing that Allah sees what you release and replaces it with what your heart truly needs. In time, you realize that what you let go of was never taken from you unjustly. It was either meant to leave or meant to return in a better form. Allah never asks you to release something without offering something greater in return. Sometimes that return is peace, sometimes clarity, sometimes a deeper connection with Him. And often it is a version of yourself that is lighter, wiser, and more spiritually free. This is the essence of letting go as a form. Faith. You loosen your grip on the world, and in doing so, you hold more firmly onto Allah. And that is where true freedom begins. Growth often arrives disguised as difficulty. And reliance on Allah is rarely learned in moments of comfort. When life is smooth, you may acknowledge Allah, but you quietly depend on your own strength, your resources, and your plans. You feel capable, confident, and in control. Yet when those supports are removed, when your effort no longer guarantees results, Allah invites you into a deeper form of growth, one that is rooted not in self-reliance, but in reliance upon Him. This shift is uncomfortable because it challenges the very foundation of how you have learned to survive. Human strength has limits. No matter how intelligent, hardworking, or disciplined you are, there comes a point where you reach the edge of your capacity. You can plan endlessly, but you cannot control outcomes. You can prepare meticulously, but you cannot prevent every loss. Allah allows you to reach these limits so you recognize them, not to humiliate you, but to liberate you from the pressure of believing you must carry everything alone. True growth begins when you stop asking, how will I manage this? And start asking, how will Allah guide me through this? Relying on Allah does not mean abandoning effort. It means shifting where your confidence rests. Instead of trusting your own ability as the ultimate source of success, you trust Allah to place barakah in your effort. You begin to understand that two people can work equally hard, yet experience vastly different outcomes, not because one is more deserving, but because Allah's wisdom governs results. This understanding humbles the heart and refines intention. You stop working merely to prove yourself and start working as an act of obedience. Growth through reliance is often born in moments of vulnerability. When you feel weak, lost, or overwhelmed, your due, it becomes more sincere. You speak to Allah not with rehearsed words, but with raw honesty. You admit your fears, your confusion, and your need. In those moments, you discover that reliance is not passive hope, it is active connection. You feel Allah's closeness, not because your problem disappeared, but because your heart turned fully toward Him. Allah teaches reliance by removing false supports. He may take away a plan you trusted, a person you leaned on, or a skill you thought defined you. At first, this feels like loss. But over time, You realize that those supports were limiting your growth. They kept you anchored to what you could see rather than to the one who sees all. When Allah becomes your primary support, everything else finds its proper place. People become blessings, not lifelines. Plans become tools, not idols. Reliance on Allah reshapes how you view hardship. Instead of seeing difficulty as a sign of abandonment, you begin to see it as a sign of divine attention. Allah is teaching you something deeper than success. He is teaching you trust. Trust that He hears you even when answers are delayed. Trust that He is providing for you even when the path is unclear. Trust that He is shaping you even when progress feels slow. This form of growth also builds resilience. When you rely on your own strength, failure can shatter you because it attacks your sense of worth. But when you rely on Allah, failure becomes a teacher rather than a verdict. You learn to stand back up with humility instead of self-blame. You recognize that your value is not tied to outcomes, but to sincerity, effort, and faith. This realization protects your heart from despair and arrogance alike. Relying on Allah also teaches gratitude in unexpected ways. You become grateful not only for ease, but for the strength Allah gives you to endure hardship. You notice small mercies you once overlooked, a moment of calm, a supportive word, a door that closed before greater harm could reach you. This awareness softens your heart and keeps it alive with hope, even during long trials. As your reliance deepens, your fear of the future lessens. You still plan, but you no longer panic when plans change. You understand that Allah's care does not depend on your ability to foresee what comes next. You learn to walk forward step by step, trusting that guidance will come when you need it. This trust does not eliminate uncertainty, but it removes its power to paralyze you. Growth through reliance also brings inner peace, not the kind of peace that comes from having everything you want, but the kind that comes from knowing you are never alone. You realize that Allah's support is constant even when circumstances fluctuate. This awareness steadies your heart and allows you to remain compassionate, patient, and grounded. Eventually, you look back and see that the moments you felt weakest were the moments your faith grew strongest. You see how reliance on Allah transformed you, how it softened your ego, strengthened your character, and clarified your purpose. You realize that Allah was not taking things away to leave you empty, but removing distractions so you could grow into someone more connected, more resilient, and more spiritually alive. This is the deeper growth Allah intends for you. Not independence from Him, but dependence upon Him. Not confidence in your own strength alone, but trust in His endless mercy and power. And when you learn this, you move through life with humility and courage, knowing that no matter what you face, relying on Allah will always be enough. When you accept that you can't force things, you stop blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong. You stop measuring your worth by results alone. You begin to understand that Allah may love you deeply even when things are not working out. In fact, sometimes the very reason things aren't working is because Allah is shaping you for something far greater than what you currently desire. A heart that has learned surrender can handle blessings without arrogance and trials without despair. This lesson also teaches patience that is active, not passive. You continue to do what is right. You continue to show up with sincerity. But you stop wrestling the future. You stop obsessing over timelines. You stop asking, why is this not happening? And instead ask, what is Allah teaching me here? That shift alone transforms pain into purpose. It turns waiting into worship. It turns silence into reflection. Eventually, you realize that the moment you stopped forcing things was the moment your heart finally found rest. Not because life became easy, but because you stopped carrying a weight you were never meant to carry. Control belongs to Allah. Your role is trust. And when you truly understand this, you walk through life lighter, calmer, and more resilient. You move forward with hope, knowing that what is written for you will arrive at the perfect time. And what misses you is never meant to stay. This is the deeper lesson Allah is teaching you. Not how to get everything you want, but how to trust Him even when you don't. Not how to control life, but how to find peace within it. And once you learn that, you realize you didn't lose anything at all you gained. Clarity, faith, and a heart that finally knows where true strength comes from. There are moments in life when delays feel heavier than failure itself. You can accept a clear no more easily than a long, unanswered wait. Disappointments sting because they arrive dressed as broken expectations, unanswered prayers, and plans that collapse just when you thought everything was aligning. Yet very often, what you perceive as delay or disappointment is not Allah turning away from you, but Allah turning you towards something else. Something safer, something purer, something more aligned with who you are meant to become. When Allah delays something, it is rarely empty time. It is filled with unseen preparation. We live in a world that celebrates speed, quick success, instant results, immediate gratification. But Allah works beyond urgency. He works with precision. He sees consequences you cannot see, futures you cannot imagine, and outcomes that would overwhelm you if they arrived before your heart was ready. A delay, then, is not a denial. It is often a redirection wrapped in silence. Many times, you ask Allah for something with sincerity, and you truly believe it will bring you happiness. You imagine the relief, the joy, the sense of arrival. But Allah, in His mercy, sees the full picture. He sees what that blessing would demand from you. He sees the compromises you would make, the stress it would introduce, the distance it might create between you and Him. So He redirects your path, not because He wants to deprive you, but because He wants to protect you. And protection does not always feel gentle in the moment. Disappointments have a way of stripping illusions. They expose what your heart was attached to more than Allah. When something doesn't work out, it forces you to sit with yourself and confront uncomfortable questions. Why did this matter so much? What was I hoping it would fix? Was I placing my peace in the outcome rather than in my Creator? Allah uses disappointment as a mirror, showing you where your reliance had drifted. This is not to shame you, but to bring you back. Sometimes Allah redirects you by closing doors you prayed would open. You tried repeatedly, and each time it failed. You felt embarrassed, exhausted, even humiliated. But later you look back and realize that if even one of those doors had opened, it would have led you to a place that would have broken you. At the time, you could not see it. Your vision was limited to the moment. Allah's vision spans your entire life and beyond it. That is why His redirection often feels confusing before it feels merciful. There is also growth hidden inside disappointment. When things fall apart, you are forced to slow down. In that slowing, you begin to hear what the noise of success once drowned out. You reflect more, you make do differently, you become more honest with Allah. The disappointment humbles you, softens you, and sometimes saves you from becoming someone you were never meant to be. Not all success is success, and not all failure is failure. Allah defines outcomes differently than the world does. Redirection is especially painful when it involves people. You wanted something to last, someone to stay, a relationship to grow. You invested emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. When it ended or changed unexpectedly, the pain cut deep. But Allah does not remove people randomly. Sometimes He removes them because their role in your story has ended. Sometimes He removes them because their presence would delay your growth. And sometimes He removes them because He wants to teach you that no heart should be held more tightly than your bond with Him. Delays also teach you patience that reshapes your character. Waiting refines intentions. It reveals whether you want the blessing itself or the pleasure of Allah through that blessing. A heart that waits while trusting Allah becomes resilient. It learns how to breathe through uncertainty, how to stand firm when answers are not immediate, and how to remain grateful even when life feels incomplete. These qualities cannot be learned in ease. They are forged in waiting. There is a profound shift that happens when you stop interpreting disappointment as failure and start seeing it as guidance. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? You ask, where is Allah guiding me through this? That shift turns pain into insight. It allows you to move forward without bitterness. It frees you from constantly replaying what could have been and anchors you in what still can be. Allah's redirection is often subtle. He may place obstacles in your path, not to stop you, but to turn you slightly, just enough to change your destination entirely. And years later, you realize that one small turn saved your faith, your mental health, or your sense of self. At the time, it felt like loss. In reality, it was rescue. What makes this lesson difficult is that Allah does not always explain His redirection immediately. Faith means trusting without full disclosure. It means believing that Allah is kind even when circumstances feel harsh. Distrust does not eliminate sadness, but it prevents despair. It allows you to grieve what didn't happen while still hoping for what Allah has prepared. Eventually, you come to understand that delays and disappointments did not weaken you. They aligned you. They redirected your heart, recalibrated your priorities, and refined your faith. You realize that some of your greatest blessings came disguised as unanswered prayers. And some of the paths you never walked were the very ones that would have cost you your peace. This is the deeper wisdom behind divine redirection. Allah is not simply managing events. He is nurturing your soul. He is guiding you step by step, even when the steps feel uncertain. And when the time is right, when your heart is ready and your faith is steady, what is meant for you will arrive without force, without fear, and without regret.